In early November 2024, I had the opportunity to revisit Ukraine. It was to the Odesa region where I stayed with Pastor Alexander and Alyona Gras. They are the parents of our international daughters, Anna Maria and Marta, who are both going to school here in the States. This is what's left of the historic Lutheran Church in Novogradovka, Ukraine. The destruction you see is not the result of the current war. Unfortunately, there is a much longer and sadder tale of this building. The German Lutheran Church was founded in this region of Ukraine in 1804. This building, this church building, was built and consecrated on October 10th, 1904. However, in 1933, it was taken away by the Soviets. They removed the bell tower and completely remodeled it so it didn't resemble a church, and they deemed it a house of culture. It wasn't until 2005, many years after the fall of the Soviet Union, that this building was returned to its rightful owners, the church community of Novogradovka. Unfortunately, it was without the bell tower and with half of its roof missing. Today, as you can see, it's fallen into a horrific place of disrepair. However, this isn't the end of the story. The foundation is still good, and plans have been drawn up, and a new vision has been cast for this building to be a center for this community, a place where once again God can be worshipped in truth and spirit and joy, where pensioners have a warm place to live during the winter, and children have a place to get a warm meal and to get homework help, and to be a sense of community. Driving into Odesa, Ukraine, it had been 4 years. You can see not much looks like it has changed. And from the outside, that's true. It looks very similar to what it had appeared 4 years ago. We were not around the areas that had been destroyed. This is the Lutheran Church, the cathedral in Odesa, Ukraine. And this is now where there's housing. You can see there's a UN vehicle there. I had opportunity to visit with local confirmands. These are adult confirmands wanting to understand a deeper appreciation for the faith. On that Sunday, I was invited to preach in the cathedral in Odesa. It was a well-attended service. And there were 60 congregants. Pastor Gras led the liturgy, and I was able to preach. This is my interpreter, Vladimir, and he was just amazing. We had a very good time. These are the regulars, the locals, the members of the church. Later, we made our way to Petrolina. Petrolina is where Sun Network helped to build a Bible school. Of course, now it's no longer a school, but a place of refuge. On this property, when we visited, there was another air raid siren. However, people have gotten used to them, and they went about their business. It's really not until nightfall that people begin to worry. We prepared for worship in Petrolina, and again I was invited to preach. And then I had the joy of meeting with many of the internally displaced refugees from Ukraine who are now housed on this property. This is the generator that your gracious dollars help to fund, and that helps to keep this property running, because there are now 6 full families and 2 singles that live on this property. It has been upgraded to be a place where people can actually have sanctuary. There's outdoor spaces, there's playgrounds for the children, and new housing, some brand new buildings, as well as some revitalized buildings, like this house that's adjacent to the church property. Solar panels. And then there's great pride in the property, and the entire displaced community comes together to make sure that the property is well kept. They till the soil, they prepare for planting in spring, and they formed an incredible sense of community in spite of this horrific war. This lady is one of the many, many volunteers, and she coordinates healthcare for over 1,200 shut-ins and residents in 7 different communities that she personally visits in and around Petrodolina and Novogradovka. In addition, meals are delivered twice a week to shut-ins, to the elderly and the mentally ill in several communities. It's part of the social kitchen project that Iona heads up. The recipients vary wide and far. This is a mother and her son. And those who I mentioned earlier who are mentally ill. The last home that we visited, this home, was shocking. 4 people live in this home, and there are no windows, no heating, and yet that's where they make their home. From there, we went back to Novogradovka, which is where the Gras family lives, and this is their property, which is also a church property, and it's a community center. One of the many joys is being able to merge into what they do daily, and that's to serve the community. What you're seeing is Pastor Gras engaging in the celebration of Saint Martin. Now, not Martin Luther, but Saint Martin, who is known for his benevolence. Legend has it that one very cold night, he had this incredible cloak, and he came upon a man who was freezing to death. And he took his sword, and he cut his cloak in half, and he gave it to this man to keep him warm. When Saint Martin woke up the next morning, the man had disappeared, and his cloak had been restored. Well, the tradition is that we remember how he gave in the midst of strife. And so tradition is that the children are taught to share in snacks, and you break it in half and you share it with your neighbor. In the name and love of Jesus Christ. And following this time of sharing in food and beverage and warmth, it's time to gather outside. We gathered with these lanterns. Every child got a lantern, and we lined up outside. And after everybody got their lantern and we posed for a picture, we took a stroll all around the neighborhood, and we sang joyous songs. And the children remember this night, this joyous time of learning and being reminded to share and to love one another with the love of Christ. This is what keeps the church going, serving the community in the midst of war, that each and every child knows that they are a child of God.